Where does the quadratic formula come from? I'm going to show you, but you only need to watch this if you're curious. This is not something that you need for anything that you need to do. You need to know what the quadratic formula is and how to use it, but you don't actually need to know where it comes from. But I'm going to show you for those of you who are curious. So we're going to start with the standard form of a quadratic equation. Ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Now, in our last section, we did the completing the square, if you remember, and that's what we're going to do with this now. But in completing the square, we cannot do completing the square unless the squared term has a 1 coefficient. And since we don't know what a is, we are going to have to get rid of that. What that means is I need to divide a out, because ax squared divided by a will leave me with x squared, which is x squared with a 1 coefficient. But if I do that to the first term, I need to do it with every term in the equation. Okay? So after I divide that out, what I'm left with is x squared plus bx over a plus c over a equals 0, because 0 over anything equals 0. All right, so now I'm going to set up my 2 steps to do the completing the square. Okay, so first step is to open up that third spot. I'm going to put a blank there. I need to move the c over a to the other side, and I'm going to have to put a blank there. And then this is going to be getting ready to have the perfect square trinomial. Okay, so now I'm going to take, let me do this, different color. I'm going to take the b over a and divide it by 2, because we always take what's in front of the x and divide it by 2. Okay, remember we're going to do this first, blank first, this one second, this one third, and this one fourth. So b over a divided by 2. Well, that's like 2 over 1. So I'm going to do copy dot flip. This is a fraction over a fraction. So b over a, copy dot change the divide to multiply and flip the bottom one. Now, there's nothing I can cross cancel, so b times 1 is b, and a times 2 is 2a. So what goes in? Boy, it's just not cooperating today. So what goes in this blank is b over 2a. Okay? Now I need to take the b over 2a and square it. So b over 2a times b over 2a. That equals b squared over 4a squared. Okay? And that's what goes in the second blank. So b squared over 4a squared. And whatever I put in the second blank is the exact same thing that goes in the third blank. So b squared over 4a squared. Well, now, in order to get the fourth blank, I need to add negative c over a plus b squared over 4a squared. So I need a lowest common denominator, which is going to be a. That's my foundation. And then I look at 4a squared, and it tells me that I have need a standalone 4 in my building, which I don't have yet. And it tells me that I have to have at least 2 a's in my building, and I have only 1. Okay, so now negative c over a. Now I need another color. Here, let's do this one. So what do I need to multiply with a to get 4a squared? Well, I would need to multiply 4a. If I do that in the denominator, I need to do it in the numerator. And then I'm going to write down the next one exactly like it is. And what do I need to multiply with 4a squared to get 4a squared? Nothing. And so now in my denominator, with both of them, I've got 4a squared. In my numerator now, I have negative 4ac when I just multiply these up, plus b squared. Okay, so that's what goes here. Negative 4ac plus b squared. Negative, come on. Negative 4ac plus b squared over 4a squared. Okay, so now it's ready. I'm going to rewrite it so we can see it. Okay, so I've got x plus b over 2a, the quantity squared, equals negative 4ac plus b squared over 4a squared. So now I'm ready to use the square root property method. So I'm going to take the square root of x plus b over 2a, the quantity squared, equals plus or minus the square root. I'm going to rewrite these, just put them in a different order. I'm going to put b squared minus 4ac over the square root of 4a squared. Okay, when this, when this exponent and this index match, what's the base of that exponent falls out as my answer. And then over here, well, there's nothing I can do in my numerator. That's just going to be the square root of b squared minus 4ac. But in my denominator, the square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of a squared is a. And now I need to get the x by itself, so I need to subtract this from both sides. And remember, I'm going to push him up in here. So I get x equals negative b over 2a plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. And I have common denominators, so I need to write this all over one common denominator. So x equals negative, here's my common denominator, 2a. So negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and there is our quadratic formula. Usually we write it with small letters. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And that's how it came to be. So there you are if you were curious.